While the revelation of the Batman's upcoming spin-off, which will focus on Colin Farrell's Penguin, is fantastic news of how amazing the character looks, it also pulls the film into the same MCU copycat trap that the original DCEU did. It means focusing too much on the future when the primary goal should be to tell the finest tales possible right now. Unfortunately, due to the MCU's spectacular, huge shared universe's popularity, Warner Bros. DC movie ambitions will undoubtedly be influenced by the same bigger scale. Although the MCU wasn't the first property to introduce the concept of a shared world, it did mark a significant shift in blockbuster filmmaking. Marvel Studios went into a paradigm that could assure audience involvement for decades, with the clear financial rewards of such entrenched fanbase, in a market already strongly dominated by sequels and big IP companies. Making Iron Man meant not just being able to produce Iron Man 2 a few years later, but also being able to rely on the brand impact Iron Man would still have on individual films, perhaps setting up Avengers 5 a decade later. Marvel Studios recognized the potential for a great MCU shared world but not the reality, yet they still nailed it and kicked off an unavoidable superhero movie arms race that DC would eventually join. Unfortunately, the DCEU misread the MCU model, rushing into Justice League too soon and requiring a reboot in the aftermath of Joss Whedon's tragic Justice League cut, which is still unresolved. The lessons were harsh, particularly the concept of being too focused on the future, and owing to the Penguin spin-off TV show, it already feels like the same mistakes are being made with Matt Reeves' The Batman. While seeing more of Reeves' universe before Robert Pattinson's Dark Knight ever appears is extremely nice, offering more before Robert Pattinson's Dark Knight even debuts risks the same old DCEU copycat shared universe problem. The push on Warner Bros. To cement the Batman brand is understandable, and the prospect of a Penguin spin-off starring Colin Farrell is thrilling in its own right, but why now? One of Christopher Nolan's greatest achievements was that the Dark Knight trilogy was a self-contained tale, partially by design and partly due to the timing of its release. The thought of him approving a Scarecrow spin-off before Batman Begins would be comical. By disclosing the next stage of the tale, the story's purity is jeopardized, and it's a mistake that the MCU does with practically every movie today. Certainly in their fascination with the post-credits scene. Not everything has to be a build-up to the next thing. Not everything has to have pre-existing satellite storylines demonstrating to the audience that the character in question will survive the main film. The fate of Farrell's Penguin is no longer a mystery. Worse, taking Penguin out of the Batman's universe for his own spin-off makes him unlikely to return for a sequel from the start. It's difficult to avoid the conclusion that the Batman 2, which is unavoidable but not yet confirmed, would pivot away from him in order to retain the reason why Robert Pattinson's Batman will not appear in the Penguin's program. After all, it's a spin-off, not a sequel, with a different focus on the characters. Then there's the matter of why, as the Batman's promotion suggests, there's a GCPD program separate from one about Gotham's crime king. None of these are issues that need to be answered at this point, when the focus should be on ensuring that the Batman arrives in the best possible condition. Let's just hope it doesn't imply that Warner Bros. Is too distracted by the golden promise of an MCU-like future to notice what's there in front of them.